all these stores you hear that are closing. I'll tell you my experience in reaching out to the landlords, they're already gone. Because the way it works is whoever owns that business, that restaurant, is letting the landlord know, hey, we're going to have to figure out a way out of this lease. And you may say to yourself, well, why then doesn't the landlord just lease the property? Like put the sign out and make it happen. It's not that easy. You know, one of the biggest challenges in the kitchen, managing that fryer oil. It's messy, it's hot, somebody's going to spill it, and quite frankly, nobody ever actually wants to take on that responsibility, or even worse, they lie and they say they did it. Nobody wants that job. That's where Restaurant Technologies comes in. Their total oil management system takes care of everything. It's completely automated, so there's no back and forth on who does what and when, or no one's getting burnt, and there's no issue of any slip or fall because maybe you didn't clean it up entirely. They automate the entire process. They deliver it, they filter it, they pick it up, and they recycle it. No burns, no spills, no hazards, just a safer, more efficient process and a safer restaurant. And here's the thing, there's no upfront cost. So if you want to cut down on accidents, protect your team, and keep your kitchen running smooth, just head over to rti-inc.com or just give them a call, 888-796-4997, and get started today. All right, guys, what's up? Welcome back to Close Monday. I'm your host, Kyle and Sarah, and this is the show, in case you've never checked it out before, that's all about what's going on in the world of restaurant growth, franchise, independent, multi-unit, startup. This is the advice you're not going to get, okay, anywhere else. So that's my plan. That's my goal. And today, man, I have to tell you, this is such a real topic because it's happening to me on almost an hour-by-hour basis that I felt the need to share it with you immediately. And it's funny because I was in the restaurant business, right? I own my own restaurants. And I remember distinctly the feeling I would get when I would be working in the restaurant, whether in the kitchen, we had an open kitchen, I was a chef, so people would see me, or if I was on the floor, or if I was just there during the day, and a broker would come into the restaurant, and it would go something like this. Hey, you're the owner, right? Yeah. What's going on? How can I help you? Hi, I'm so-and-so. My husband and my wife, whatever, we came in here the other night and blah, 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 blah. We loved it. And I have this space that I think would be great for, okay, you get the picture, right? If you've ever worked in a restaurant, you've undoubtedly had that experience. And I used to get so annoyed that I would turn around to my partner and say, like, would she like it if I came into her office or his office and just said, hey, we just made this. Are you hungry? Yeah, sorry, you're on your lunch break, right? I just made this and I want to just, she'd be like, what are you doing? I'm working. Okay, so, and I get like that's sometimes rather how that dynamic works, but there's a couple ways to go about it. Oh, whatever. It annoyed me. So I understand that you get a little bit annoyed when a broker says something to you because you feel like they're trying to, or maybe they are being a little pushy. And I have to tell you though, again, as somebody who's been on both sides of this and bring you guys only what I know to be factually true and experience, that if you are working with a broker right now and they're telling you, hey, found you a great site, but we need to move quickly. Apparently there's a lot of attention, a lot of interest. They already have a proposal out on it. They're not lying. And it's pretty insane how quickly these spaces are hitting the market and then coming off the market. Just yesterday, I'm not sure if you guys are on X at all, but Strip Mall Guy, one of the preeminent voices in commercial real estate. He obviously, as his name implies, owns a lot of strip malls, has a lot of property in California, all across the country. And he posted something that said something to the effect of, in one of his shopping centers, he had a restaurant tenant leave on January 6th. January 12th, they put it on the market. February 4th, they had a signed lease. And that's in California. California, where everybody is saying, oh, it's really tough to run a restaurant right now in California. It's just really tough. And restaurants are closing, and how are we going to make it work? So imagine how it's going in hot markets. We talked about on the show previously, and a lot of my clients are, you know, correctly asking about what's going on with these vacant Starbucks or these Wendy's or Burger Kings, all these stores you hear that are closing. I'll tell you my experience in reaching out to the landlords, they're already gone. Because the way it works is whoever owns that business, that restaurant, is letting the landlord know, hey, we're going to have to figure out a way out of this lease. And you may say to yourself, well, why then doesn't the landlord just lease the property? Like, put the sign out and make it happen. It's not that easy. That's why leases are in place. And we don't have to get into it now, but it's just not that easy to do that. You can't do that legally. In a lot of regards, you can't do that. So what instead happens is the landlord or the landlord's rep or the broker will start making phone calls saying like, hey, if you're interested, I'm sure you heard Starbucks is closing. Noodles & Co. is closing. Any interest? And if you're somebody like me who works with restaurants and you're dealing in this market where nothing is available, yeah, we want to see it. We're all over it. And that's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. And I'm telling my clients now, and it has happened to us on several occasions in multiple markets, in Raleigh, in Connecticut, in Texas, okay? Just off the top of my head, I can think of those three markets and in those three states, markets, whatever. Yeah, well, they want to think about it for a little while. 2-3 weeks later, we're looking at, a bunch of different sites, and they say, hey, whatever happened to that, Beaver Creek Plaza site? Gone. It's gone. So I'm just telling you that I know that there's a weird distrust, and I get it. Okay. Particularly if you have somebody who doesn't necessarily always work with restaurants. You just have to understand that for most brokers, restaurants are a freaking headache. An office space, commercial brokers tend to specialize in different asset classes. They focus on one asset class. Like most brokers in my space, they focus on retail. So restaurants would be part of the business that they do in the broader sense of retail. So they will do a women's clothing store, a nail salon. You get the point. But if they don't just focus on restaurants, the idea that they have to worry about things like zoning and parking and grease traps and hoods and all that stuff, it's a headache. So those folks, most of the time, obviously in this market too, but all the time, they're generally like, basically, do you want it or not? It's going to go quickly. You're going to kill it here. Because they just want to get the deal moving. They want to get paid. I get that part too. Completely get that part too. So my point, what I want you guys to just understand this week is if you really, really think about your five things, okay? I always say your 5 sort of criteria that you have for a site. I used to say you have to have 5 non-negotiables. That's the word. That's what I used. Non-negotiables. I forgot. But yeah, criteria, non-negotiables, whatever it is. I used to say if you don't have them, move on. But you can't do that anymore. You're never going to hit it. You're never going to hit all 5. So, like I've said before, you can make a lot of money hitting doubles and triples. You don't need to hit grand slams. Not every site needs to be picture perfect for you. A lot of things have shifted over the last 10 years or so, particularly over the last 5 or 6. The delivery component, the online ordering, the digital presence, all of that stuff impacts your business, right? And it also impacts your criteria, in my opinion. So maybe it's time to revisit that criteria. I even had a call with a client the other day who has a very, very strict set of criteria. And they're an emerging brand, they're a franchise. So when I present, the site criteria to brokers in the market, I inquire on a space. I say, hey, is this, space at 123 Main Street available? No, it's gone. Of course it is. Do you have anything else? Yeah, sure. Send me their criteria. Undoubtedly, almost 100% of the time, I get an email or a call or a text back like, there's nothing in our portfolio that matches this. You got to be flexible. Okay. So I had a conversation with them and I said, hey, look, they're frustrated, understandably frustrated that we're not landing more deals. I said, look, we got to just scratch the criteria. And look, from the brand's perspective, this brand is their baby. They want to take care of their baby and give it everything that it needs. And they know what's worked for them. They don't have that many stores open, right? So they have a small sample size. So they can't say like, oh, well, these 10 stores are actually sort of non-traditional. They don't even have 10 stores. So they have not a big enough sample size to compare anything to, really. So it's a tricky situation. But what I've told the brokers now is we need the best real estate in the market. Best visibility, best access, great co-tenants. Let's just ignore everything that it says on that flyer. Let's just find the best real estate. And I think that's what you should do too. Because even if it doesn't check all 5 boxes, you are going to have an opportunity to open a store and make money. Because the other side of this is, unless you're waiting, unless you got 18, 24, 36 months to wait, is construction hasn't caught up since COVID. There's not a lot of new developments. And permitting and that entire process seems to be taking significantly longer for whatever reason. And my guess is I should have somebody from like a contractor, an architect on the show to talk about this process because it's adding, a year onto some timelines, which is unfortunate. But anyway, you have to just realize that if you can get 3 out of 5 of your criteria or just revise your 5 quote unquote non-negotiables to be something that's actually more attainable if you have to grow this year or the next year and a half. I just saw on LinkedIn a post where, I forget. I don't know if it was Whataburgers or Wahlburgers, one of these burger concepts. I don't know if they couldn't find a site or if they just were trying something new, but I believe it was because they wanted to get their footprint in a particular market in South Florida. They couldn't find a space. So you know what they did? Whatever it was, Whataburger or Wahlburgers, I think it was Wahlburgers. Whatever they did, or wherever they were, rather, they had a significant number of units. So this wasn't just a mom and pop operation taking a fly by night. They put a freaking truck at Home Depot and said, come visit us at our new location in Sarasota, or wherever it was. So that's an indication of what's going on. And you need to just take your broker's word for it. And if you have experienced anything different, please let me know what market that is. Because odds are it's probably a tertiary market, which could be very good for you. I'm not taking anything away from it. But if you're looking at these top tier markets, even these second tier markets, it's tight. It's really tight. So I'm going to throw this out there because this is, and I actually have somebody, one of you guys actually took me up on this, and shout out to him. I forget his name right now, but he took me up on this and he said, Kyle, you told me in one of the episodes to call you if I was having an issue finding a site, and he did. And he and I got on a call and we jumped online and said, hey, look, it looks like rents are trading for this year. There might be an opportunity over here. So because you've listened to this entire episode, In the show notes will be my contact information. If you're having an issue landing a site and you're in a market where you want just some feedback, email me, DM me, and tell me, hey, I listened to the podcast. I heard what you had to say. I'm really struggling and I need help, and I will help you for free. So that's my way of saying thank you for all of you guys who listen to the show and listen to the end in particular, because I know how this goes. But take their word for it, guys. If you have to grow, be open minded to what's out there and be ready to move. Have your funding in place, have your resume ready to go, your personal financial statements, and just be ready to move. Otherwise, you're going to miss out. And you'll be opening new stores in 2027 and 2028, which for a lot of you, I know that makes you sick to your stomach to even think about. For some of you, maybe that's okay. But whatever situation you're in, just realize that this market right now does not favor anybody who's moving slow. All right. That's it, guys. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl this weekend, and I'll see you next week.